Hi, do you know the classic drum books?
Or you have no idea what we're talking about.
Hi, I'm Felipe.
And I'm the other Felipe. Welcome to the other Felipe. Classic drum books. Do you know the classics? No idea what you're talking about. So let's start with the classic of the classics. Stick control. Have you heard of this? What do you know about the stick control?
Well, I've practiced that one like quite a few times in my life, and I use it for teaching in a very regular basis. And I think for drum techniques is probably the most important book.
Yes.
So it's all about stickings, really. Everyone knows the basics: singles, doubles, paradiddles, flams. What this book does is to combine them in every possible way you can imagine.
If you just practice the book as it's written, basically you have 46 pages of drum fills. And let's face it, we play drums because you want to play drum fills. We don't care about we don't care about the groove. We don't care about the groove. We want to play drum fills. And
don't forget about the groove. You're gonna make money by playing groove, but honestly, when you practice by yourself, that's what you're gonna do.
Basically, 46 pages of drum fills.
Yeah, and obviously you can use that as patterns for hi-hat and grooves as well, obviously. If you just pick one of the sticking patterns and add a bass, you have a groove, depending on how you play it.
There's the potential of this book is amazing. I unfortunately don't remember the guy's name, my fault, but there's a guy who cataloged the different ways you can do stick control. And the latest number is 157 different ways of doing this book.
To do each of the 50 pages, which contains at least 12 exercises. Some of the pages have 24 exercises.
Exactly. So
yeah.
Never ends.
You make the numbers. I'm not going to spend my time on it.
Get your calculator.
Yeah. So it's like it ends up being a useful resource for all times. I mean, if you have one of these with you when you're traveling, touring, or practicing, just have it by your side all times. Because if you think about, if you run out of ideas on, I want to improve my double strokes, or I'm bored with the exercise I've been doing, so you get to one of those pages here, find the double stroke exercise and go through them. And it's important because it makes you play everything starting from the right hand and starting from the left hand as well. So you should be able to play every phrasing with any possible sticking. So that's the idea of the book.
Yeah.
And it's
awesome. And the other thing is there's an interview I read years ago with Steve Smith that he said back in the day there were only 3 books: Stick Control, and we're going to talk about all 3 of them, but it was Stick Control, the classic gym shaping book, and Syncopation, and the teachers had to teach everything
from those 3 books.
From those 3 books. Nowadays you have if you research, you're going to see that probably there's a book just for the left foot, right? So the teacher had to teach everything using that book. So try to find I did a series for the Dario in the Education Collective, where that's called Beyond the Page, where a bunch of teachers, me included, we did videos of how to use the classic books in different ways. So search for that on the Dario Education Collective YouTube channel, and you're going to see.
We're going to put the link.
Are we? Okay.
We're going to put the link in this video.
Yeah, we're going to put the link in this video.
It might be here right now. I can't see it.
So he says we're going to put the link. So
he's going to put the link.
I trust him. So something more about?
Yeah, one thing about the book. So as Felipe said, is by the time
other Felipe.
The other Felipe. I'm Felipe. He's the other Felipe. So as the other Felipe said, when people had no options of books, or you had access to 2 or 3 books to practice, you had to be creative with the book. So instead of having something totally prepared, this is the exercise, that's how you play it. Stick control gives you possibilities, so it's good for your creativity. And you should practice with your feet as well. That's one of the most important applications of the book. So everything you can do with your hands, try with your feet, and this is a great book. If you run through the whole book with your feet, heel down technique and heel up technique, then your vocabulary for grooves and for double pedal, if you're a metal drummer, for instance, is really cool. And one more thing I want to say, which I think for me is the most important thing about stick control, which is how to practice. Most people don't read the text; they read the exercise. So,
Yeah.
if you show the first page, please. People tend to skip this page, the first page,
yeah.
and go straight to this.
How it is, how to practice, and so the exercise start on page 5, and even at the bottom says repeat each exercise 20 times. Okay, people don't read that, but start the book. If the author has written something, read it. It's important. So read this part and then start the book.
Okay, so this is something you can apply to all the other books we're going to talk about. So you pick one bar of exercise or groove or fill or sticking pattern, you play that 20 times. And I start counting after I nail that pattern. So like, I'll try it. Okay, is that good enough? Okay, I think I got it now, very slowly. From the time I feel confident about playing that, I'm going to start counting 20 times. And at least 3 different tempos or more if you can. So I do like 20 times in a slow tempo, 20 times in a faster tempo, and 20 times in a really fast tempo if I can play it. Okay?
So no more excuse for being bored. Stick control.
Stick control.
Next one, advanced technique for the modern drummer. Absolute classic from Jim Shaping. What do you want to say about that, Felipe?
Yeah, interesting thing, it says in the cover, as applied to jazz and bebop. Okay, so jazz and bebop, obviously, they are the basis of modern drumming, because the drum kit started to become popular in the early 20s, I guess.
Yeah,
Can I say that?
Yeah, early 20s, yeah.
Early 20s, the drum kit, as we know it, started to get more and more popular. And it was used by jazz drummers, so that's one of the reasons why this book is important. So you learn how to develop your coordination in a musical context. So this one, at first, might sound even more musical than stick control.
Yeah.
It's not only technical. You have a jazz pattern on top of it. So if you're not a jazz drummer, you shouldn't practice that book. No, because it's about coordination. So
yeah, coordination. As it says, coordinated independence. It's gonna open up your mind, and if possible, play writing with the right hand and writing with the left hand. You know, doing the exercises. It's great for anybody who wants to start in jazz. Again, there's the text. Read it.
ooh, text.
Words.
Loads
Words.
of pages.
Yeah, okay. And then it starts quite simple, but the man who wrote this, Jim Shaping, can make things really complicated. So don't worry about it, okay? Interesting story about this book. When it first came out, many top drummers of the day were saying that this book was impossible. It was impossible to play. So the publishing company had to make a tour. Jim Shaping did a tour. Funded. Sorry?
In America.
In America. So the publishing company paid Jim Shaping to do a tour in America so he could prove that it was possible to play.
It's not even to teach. It's like that page, you can't play, I can play. That's what he was doing.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay, another classic, Ted Reed's Syncopation for the modern. I think back in the day, writing modern drummer was very important. So, Syncopation for the modern drummer. I know, obviously, I've practiced book, but he's the guy to talk about it.
Okay, yeah, I had loads of lessons on this book and I've practiced quite a lot. The interesting thing about syncopation is it starts as a reading book. So the first patterns, let me see if I can pick one here. So first you start with quarter notes or crotchets and rests, okay? It's very simple and you can see there's a bass line all the way through it. Again, that's based in jazz playing where usually you have a kick pattern playing all the way through the song, playing the 4 on the floor. Okay, but here's the thing: it starts as a reading book, so you can play this with one hand if you want to. It doesn't require a very advanced technique. But as it goes on, you have more complicated patterns. But the most important thing is after all the basic lessons, as the book says, lesson 1, we have here lesson 11, as you get to the exercise in the end of the book, the readings at the end of the book, this is what we're talking about. Exercise 1. From this page onwards, what you have, it's a reading pattern which is mainly syncopated. What is a syncopated pattern? Help me with that one.
Oh my God! I have explained a syncopated pattern. The basic explanation for syncopation is when you put the accent on the less obvious part of the beat. Okay, but syncopation can also mean, patterns that don't follow a linear structure, like ta 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 ta. Syncopation is when there's a break in that, like ta 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 ta.
So what happens here from this page onwards, what we have is loads of those patterns in which the offbeats are more used than the beats, so it makes you improve your accuracy on playing offbeats, and also you can play that in many ways. So if you read this, it's just a kick pattern and a snare pattern, which I suggest you to play without the kick as well, so you don't rely on the kick to keep the time. So you have to feel the offbeat as well as you can feel the beat. So it's a very important book. And how do you practice that? You can make it a reading book by just following the patterns and playing them on the snare. You can make it turn into a technical book by doing the whole thing with your left hand, so improve your left hand playing. You can play all those patterns with accents, filling the gaps between the notes with ghost notes. So it's a study for dynamics and accents and ghost notes. But one of the most important things is to interpret all those readings as triplets. So every time you see two eighth notes, you're not going to play them as eighth notes. So if you see a pattern, let's pick one of them here. Exercise 1. So if you see the first bar, okay, we have an eighth note and then a quarter note. But you're not going to play them as 1 and 2, and you're going to play 1 and 2 like that, like triplets, okay? So why? In the early jazz drumming, people would have to read melodies because they wouldn't write charts for the drummers.
No,
would
they
so,
didn't, yeah.
So this, we're going to play Summertime. This is the song. You would have the melody. So you follow the structure, you follow the parts of the song, and you follow the bar counting, whatever. And you have the melodies for the A section, the B section of the song, sometimes a C, that depends on the song. You follow those things and you follow the melody. But the melody was written in eighth notes,
Yeah.
but played in triplets.
Yeah. It was what they call it, the swinging eighth note.
Exactly. So this book is mainly meant to be played swung. So you should interpret those eighth notes as triplets. Important thing about it.
I brought stick control back because I forgot to say who wrote it. And
Oh.
the guy who wrote this was George Lawrence Stone. So as you can see, we are creating the Bible of drumming.
Yeah.
The Bible is made of many books, and the Bible of drumming is made of many books. So stick control, I would say, is Genesis,
Yeah.
not the band.
And we have Ted Reed, who
Yeah.
wrote Syncopation. Let's mention those guys because they were
Yeah,
very important.
I did mention Ted Reed and,
Yeah.
and Jim Shaper. I forgot about.
I forgot.
I forgot about. Yeah, he didn't pay attention because I'm the other Felipe. He doesn't care. So, so George Lawrence Stone wrote Stick Control, which brings us to George Lawrence Stone's second book, Accents and Rebounds. The story was told to me by Don Famularo, and it was told to him by Joe Morello himself. According to the legend, from our forebearers, one day Joe Morello was George Lawrence Stone's student. So one day Morello turned up for his lesson with his book Stick Control and a bunch of stuff written on top of the notes, and Stone said, "Huh, what's that?" And Morello said, "Sorry, Mr. Stone, but I'm bored practicing this book, so I decided to make it more interesting by putting some accents." And then George Lawrence Stone said, "Hey, that's a great idea. and it's gonna be my next book.
Let's make some money out of that.
So Accents and Rebounds is gonna be my next book. Thank you, Joe. I'll make the money. No, that was not exactly like that. So Joe Morello gave George Lawrence Stone an idea for his second book. So much so that if you read the text, you're gonna see that in the beginning, George Lawrence Stone dedicates the book to his best
Did you
student.
say anything about reading the text? Did you talk about
No,
that?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, so it's just
Yeah.
let people know you should read the text.
There's a text. Read the text. And this new edition has a bunch of drummers saying what they think about the book
And how they practice the book. as
and
well.
how they practice the book as well. Cool. Next classic book, New Breed by Gary Chester. And now this book it's a classic. It has 39 patterns that are applied to reading pages. So it really develops your coordination, your independence, and obviously your reading. But believe it or not, even though there's 39 different applications for each page, you can still do more. Ta-da!
Yeah, so how you do more. First of all, what you have here is reading patterns. You have a whole page. I like this one. I like 5A is a good one. So you have that reading. Just reading this page is quite a good exercise, isn't it?
Yeah, you can just read the page as a reading exercise.
So that's how I did at the beginning, because when I first picked this book, my reading was terrible. Still not very good, is it? Well, so what I did was
It was terrible. Now it's okay.
it's okay, yeah. So what I did was to just pick one bar and repeat that bar and try to understand the sound of that note value combined with the next one, etc. So I've practiced the whole page, okay, playing single strokes. So I'm more concerned about the reading than the technique itself. It's a very simple technique, just right, left, playing everything on this near as it's written, okay? So before getting into the patterns, what you can do, you can turn that, after you know how to read, you can turn that into a technical exercise. Do the whole page with your left foot. If you want to improve your double kick technique, you need your left foot to be as good as the right one. So you can do this as a technical exercise for your left foot, same for the left hand. And again, the same way you do syncopation. You can, in all this space, you can play the whole page in 16th notes or semiquavers by just adding ghost notes every time you have a rest. Okay, so you read this as 16th notes all the way, and the reading, the melody here is actually going to be the accents. That's one of the ways. There's several ways.
So you're now combining two books. You're applying the techniques you learned in Accents and Rebounds to a reading exercise.
Yeah, you can orchestrate this as phrases and fills as well. So
Drum fills!
Yes! And this is only, like, we're only talking about one page and one reading pattern. Okay, what's going to happen is after you know how to read this, then you can think about independence. Then you pick one of the patterns right at the beginning of the book. Where are they?
Before we go there, text.
There's a text.
Read the text.
There's information in there. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything starts with English and then go into drumming.
Yeah.
Weird. So there we go. So that's the first page. So you have patterns for right cymbal or hi-hat, and you have to apply those to those readings. By the time you're working on that, you should be focused on your coordination and the overall sound of your groove. So reading shouldn't be the challenge by that point. So you have to master the reading first to get into the coordination. Again, it's a book that most people tend to think it's a book about coordination and independence, but also involves technique, control of your sounds, and obviously reading, loads of reading. Okay?
Cool. Next book. Modern Reading Text in 4/4 by Louis Belson. Another classic about reading. Okay? There's loads of pages of reading from quarter note or crotchets to till the end, basically. What's the latest? There's coordination. There's 30-second notes, semiquavers. Okay, 16th note triplets. Yeah, and obviously there's a text.
Oh, in the beginning of the book, isn't it?
Read the text at the beginning of the book. And also, after, you can do the same thing you just did with not what you just did, what we just told you to do with New Breed. Do the book as a reading book, as it's meant to be, but then try to find different ways to interpret each page. Okay? This is another great improvement for reading. And the more you read, the more work you're going to have. Now,
sounds like we can combine that with New Breed.
You can combine
one of the commission patterns.
Exactly. You can get one of the patterns for New Breed and put into the Louis Belson book. You can. Possibilities are literally endless. Now, personal note. Another classic. Realistic Rock.
The hair is a classic, isn't it?
Everything. The hair, the mustache, the concert tones, everything in this book is a classic. I have the updated Realistic Rock drum method by Carmine Appice. Well, it was updated in 1984.
It's not so up to date anymore.
Well, but it has more updated versions. Okay, so this is.
Oh, please show them the hair.
Yeah, I have to show the hair. This is the hair. This is what we're talking about.
That's
not this. This.
All right.
Yeah, this book is a great book for beginners to learn how to play drums. Start very easy with eighth notes on the hi-hat, quarter notes on the bass and the snare, and then it gets complicated. There's a little bit of double bass, double pedal, and also the newest version that I think it's from 2 years ago, there's even a little bit of linear drumming on it. The reason why I'm talking about this book is it is a classic. If you look on the internet, if you Google it, it's gonna come probably as one of the top 10 drum books of all times. What happens is this is the book that taught me how to play and read drums. Back in the day, 1 million years ago, when dinosaurs used to walk on Earth, I started playing drums in the south of Brazil, and there was only one book in my city, not one type of book, one kind of book. There was literally one book.
Was it this one?
This one. And I had the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy. I had, before I could use for my lessons, I had to get a pen and write on top of the note so I could see it from the stand. Right? So when I arrived in the US in 1995 and I walked into a shop and I saw this book, this was the first drum book I bought in the US when I went to study at Musicians Institute. I think it was Professional Drum Shop in Los Angeles, and there it was for sale.
And you thought, oh, it's real!
Yeah, it does
exist. It's not a copy!
It does exist, right? Unfortunately, I blame myself for it all to this day. Unfortunately, you see this black stripe here? Well, nowadays you don't even have CDs. You buy the book and you download the audio and video content of the books, or even you don't even have the book. You use all apps and stuff like that. But back in the day, before cassette tapes, they had a plastic vinyl that was as thin as the paper of the book. That there was some exercise, and the way to listen to that, you would put one vinyl album on your vinyl player, and then that vinyl sheet on top of it, so you could hear how the exercise went. And good luck trying to play with it, because the moment you put on the album player, you start playing the drums, the needle would jump. You have no idea what I'm talking about. I know. I'm a dinosaur. Well, anything you want to add?
Well, interesting thing about this as well is
besides the hair.
Yeah, besides the hair, this is a rock book, as the name says. So if you're more into rock, you might start from this one, isn't it? Instead of Jim Chapin, and then go.
But it's a great beginner's book.
Yeah,
you know. it's a good beginner's book because it starts from the very, 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 very beginning. Yeah, it's a rock book, but whatever the style you like, it's a very good beginner's book.
Yeah. So what I think about the classic books is we're talking about drums literature, isn't it? So if you wanna study English literature, you have to know Shakespeare, don't you? So,
yeah. And you have to buy the books.
So yeah, it's like buy the original ones. So whatever you're studying, you need to know the classics, whatever subject you're studying. So if you consider yourself a professional drummer or someone who is really interested in drumming, and
Serious about drumming doesn't need to
yeah.
be professional, but serious about drumming.
Yeah, if you have a serious attitude towards drumming, you should know the classics. You should get into that and research those books and understand why they are classics. It's not easy to record an album that's going to be considered a classic. Why are some rock albums are classic, some jazz albums are classic? Because the music in those albums kind of defines the style or sets new how can I put it, new ways of playing that kind of music. So if you are into drumming, you should know why these books are classic books, and get into them, have fun. They're all good. As soon as you get started, you're gonna have fun. Like, they're all really interesting stuff to do, and all of them are gonna help you with reading techniques and coordination. All of those books.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yes, very well put. Congratulations.
Good being here again. So,
Well, I hope you liked it. See you next time.
bye bye.